our brother Paul. So I'll admit it that I heart Facebook. I really do. I have since I first got on it, and I'm still amazed at how many of you are not using it as often as I am. I look in vain for Tim Eubank to make a post, and it just doesn't happen. Thank goodness I hear from his wife every once in a while, or I wouldn't know if Tim was living and breathing. I love Facebook, not for all the nonsense, although sometimes I get caught up in that too, but I get caught up with you, and I get to share what I'm up to. I get the news, and not that fake news, not that news that gets thrown on there that sometimes you really better question. The news about people, which almost always is true. I love to hear what you're up to, and it makes it so easy to, in the short time I have sometimes to just pray for you, to say hello and catch up with you immediately in the courtyard, to know where you've been, what you're doing. I read about births, I read about deaths, promotions, moves, catch up with old friends that, gosh, I never would have kept up with, and make new ones as well. I really like it. I like it. It obviously has its drawbacks. And I know all the young people have left it for Instagram a long time ago and left Instagram for Snapchat, but that's the way they are. You know, they just keep going. Me, I'm happy with Facebook. It gives me the news that I can use about you guys. I just made that up. But think about Paul. Think about Paul trying to get the news. He's in prison. How does he get the news? There's no Facebook for him to look at, no newspapers, no cable news programs for which he may be grateful if he knew what they were. And how does he get the news? He has to send Timothy. He has to send someone with the letter to take it to the church. The church has to write a letter and send it back with him. It's the Apostle Express, I guess. It's all he's got. So you can imagine now he sits in prison and how he wonders about these churches he started and how they are doing and how truly deep these words are. He's hungry to hear the news, especially in his distress, to hear from his favorite church. It's like hearing from your favorite child, which I know you don't have a favorite child, but if you had a favorite child, you'd really want to hear from them, wouldn't you? He needs to be cheered up. And there's nothing for him more cheerful than news from Philippi. It's made me think about what's going on today with our annual meeting and all the reports that we've been gathering so that when we meet later today, we can give you the news about what we've been up to. It's not all that we're going to do, but it's an important part. It's the part that I always really enjoy because I like to take just a little time and look back and say what good things God has done at Advent yet again and again and again and again. And I wonder what Paul would think if he heard the news from Advent. The Lord matters more, but I would be interested in how Paul would feel. Would he get more joy from hearing from us? And I think the answer is yes, in countless ways. So I've got breaking news for you on 2017 in ways that I believe that Paul would feel a lot of joy about what's gone on here. Breaking news, church shares the love. This, of course, is not a headline we see much these days, as churches consistently seem to be reported for having quite the opposite attitude. But I believe if someone was to report on Advent, they could say, you know, they've been doing this love your neighbor as yourself thing, and it's sort of wearing off on them. You think about it, when you leave this place, you have to face a community, sometimes a family, a nation so often divided. But while we're here, while we're singing and praying and having coffee together, while we're hanging out together, while we're studying together or serving or on retreat together, whatever we're doing together, there is some love happening here, amen? Again and again when people join our church, we ask them, why do you come? And I've said this before. Only a small percentage say, because you're the Lutheran church in town. The reason they join the church again and again is because they say, because you made me feel welcome here. Always have, and I hope always will. While other churches may grow for all sorts of extravaganzas, or even handsomer pastors than we have here, Advent's going to grow by love. It has, it will. We don't just talk the talk. We walk it. We walk the walk here. I think Paul would get great joy from that. I get great joy from the J. Mac attack that we have breaking news about. It is so great to have Jacob here, even if he said I was the third handsomest pastor by default. It's nice to have a young whippersnapper around. He just turned 29, for goodness sakes. And yet, he's added so much so quickly. Sure, he dresses very snappily. He's got the look. But let me tell you, the biggest impact I think here is his love for the Word. Last week I had to miss our senior Bible study, and I flipped it to Pastor Dave, who flipped it to J-Mac due to other schedules. I asked them what they thought, and they said it was great because he loves the Word. It's so great. So the words Paul says to Timothy, we say to you, J-Mac, don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. You have for our youth and young adults. You will. It's the best attack that we could have prayed for. Breaking news. Dave Kirk serves 25 years in our music ministry, lifting up an anthem of praise, serving our very strong senior ministry all these years. What a blessing it is. You don't get to spend much time with Dave at this service, but I urge you to give him thanks if you haven't, and to come sometimes a little early or stay a little late. At the first service, he's playing a prelude, and he literally ran out of keys. You know, he went right off the end of the keyboard. The man's amazing. And yet looks out for every one of those seniors like a good shepherd. We're so blessed. So blessed to have him here. An exciting breaking news. Advent graduates 28 eighth graders. 28 eighth graders. A number of these were members, but most of them were not. Some of these started with us in the infant room, which means some of them have been around the love of Christ through Advent for 14, even 15 years of their lives. They attend 35 chapels a year. Some of us may wonder if we have as many Sundays notched to our belt in a year. By the time they graduate, they've gone to chapel 400 times, led it a whole bunch of times themselves, which is an amazing thing in itself. Done daily devotions for all those years, religion classes, taking them from Old to New Testament. You go into the classroom, you see the prayers they list on their boards. They're praying for each other and for their families and for the world. The teachers that we have who witness the love of Christ and share it in countless ways. The culture we have here. When Mrs. Bloom meets with people, they say, I'm concerned about bullying. She says, then you've come to the right school. We take care of every kid. Even the bullies. They need God's love too. What a blessing. What a blessing that we have an opportunity to shape this many children this long. Because the minute they leave this place, wow, what world do they go into? You know what world. It's the one you keep struggling to stay a Christian in. Imagine for them the impact. When vast numbers of their cohorts don't know a thing about Jesus Christ and couldn't say the Lord's Prayer to save their life, these kids come out equipped, confident Christians, ready to go, ready to go. I think Paul would be glad for that. I think Paul would get a lot of joy in knowing about our Advent Square, the leadership that we have there, the people. Paul said, "Do not rebuke an older man harshly. Exhort him as if he were your father." We are to look upon the elderly as our fathers and mothers, whether they are or not. It does no good for a society to stop caring for its elderly. And Advent Square is a shining example of how that can be done in an affordable way, in a decent way, in a wonderful way, in a Christian way. It's a place they call home, and you know what an honor we have for most of them that go. It's the last place they'll call home. What an amazing ministry. We might forget about it because it's on the other end of campus, but this is living out the gospel all the time, every day. We thank Tom Dowell, and I can't thank Tom and his staff enough for their unbelievable efforts during Hurricane Irma when they camped in the assisted living facility for 3 nights in a row, not leaving the facility until it was safe for everybody to finally move about. Some of you might be startled if you went there to imagine 3 days. People very oftentimes disturbed by the storm and what was going on. And yet Tom and his staff, they were there because that's what they do for us. Praise God. That should be on the news. That should be a feature story. Of course, our cover girls, we couldn't imagine not celebrating the wonderful work of our Freedom Challenge ladies and all of you who support them and pray for them and believe in the cause of fighting human trafficking. Isn't it wonderful that the Church of Christ is at the forefront of the anti-human trafficking movement? Jesus said, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me. He has sent me to proclaim good news to the poor, to proclaim freedom for the prisoners, to set the oppressed free." We don't just listen to those words. We don't just read those words and study those words. They climb mountains to shout those words and come down those mountains to do those words. And there are girls in India now who don't know you, but they are looking not at a life of prostitution, but a life as teachers and social workers and nurses because of you, because of them. And it's not over yet. So many other ways that we help. In Haiti, in Somalia, in Uganda, and Boca Helping Hands, and Family Promise, all these ways that are outside of our own needs that we absolutely are committed to. What a wonderful blessing to be at a place, a church that is not navel-gazing, but looking out around the world and saying, where's the hope that we can bring to the hurt in this world? Paul had a concern about the gifts of the Spirit. He talks about the gifts of the Spirit. And although some churches lean a lot toward the fantastical gifts of the Spirit, like speaking in tongues, Paul was really also very interested in the more meaningful ones, the ones that actually changed lives. And so he talked about healing, that the Spirit gives the gift of healing. And you may not know, but I hope you will not leave it unknown, the ministry of our healing ministry here at Advent. Their worship services are so touching. And they pray for anyone who comes. It's not the Benny Hinn show. It's nothing dramatic and crazy and scary. It's just sweet people. And I can't forget the feeling of Jerry Latherer's hand on my shoulder when he prays for me. And he asked me, he said, "Pastor, how was your hip doing? And I said, my hip? He said, yeah, 2 years ago you came and you said your hip was sore. I said, I've forgotten that, and he remembered that. What a feeling for a pastor. What a feeling for any of us to know that they care even about something so small as the third handsomest pastor's hip. The touching lives. I give thanks for our Stevens ministers, the quiet work they do. You will not know about it because it's confidential. Some of you do, though, and you know what difference they've made in your lives. And I think of Carol Daniluk and how she was surrounded by love from that group up till her last days. And I give thanks for our shepherd care people and all of you who reach out to each other and pray for each other and care for each other. That's what a church should be, right? It's not a show. It's not an extravaganza. Although I do have to say, I do like our colored lights. I do like them. But if that's what it was all about, that would be pointless. It's about how we love each other. I hope that happens everywhere, but I know it happens here. I see it. And they know it happens in the Keys because 2 weeks after we were hit by Irma, we had a team down there. A team down in the Keys helping out a church so he could clear its parking lot for worship services. A pastor so that he could minister to his flock instead of worrying about his own landscaping. Church members who were away and frantic about the state of their house. Advent's team was there, helping in every way that we could. While I don't recommend ever giving me a chainsaw again, we got it done. We got it done, and others like Ian Roses continued to go back and back and back. We thank all those who can look beyond their own needs, because we left a mess out of our homes, many of us, to get down there, because that's what it's all about. It's a sort of sad breaking news for us, but a joyful one too. And that is that Pastor Rich this past year danced his way into retirement. It's a amazing thing to look back. I'm sure some of you have in these weeks as he retired and think, gosh, there's where he touched our lives, and there's where he preached that, and there's where he did that. And we keep figuring it out as we keep thinking about all the things that get dropped, and we're thinking, oh, that must have been a Pastor Rich thing. In fact, Dave, remember the ashes, because, do we have the ashes? Okay, good. This is something Pastor Rich always did. Out in his backyard in his Weber, he would burn the leaves from Palm Sunday. I assume you have some from last year still. Good. Whew. Just another thing. You could echo these words in Paul when you think of Pastor Rich. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And it's such a pleasure to have him and Avis poke their heads back in here, not making themselves in any way the center of attention, but simply wanting to worship with us still. And it's a big compliment because they visited quite a few churches, and they said they needed to come back home. Wow, what a compliment. Breaking news. We have to recognize Jessica Ballas and her family, her whole family, as they've come on board for our family ministry this fall. It is a family affair for these guys. They put everything into it, and we're so blessed to have them, because you know Jessica was a student here and a teacher at early childhood school, and now is our family minister. She is Advent in so many ways, and she reflects that great part of Advent that hears Jesus' words that let the children come to me. Let them come to me. Let them come and let them be blessed. There's a lot preventing the kids from coming to Jesus these days, but not if Jessica can help it. The news from Advent. What do you think Paul would think about this? And I know some of you say, we shouldn't spend a whole time just, complimenting ourselves. It's kind of self-serving, but I read an article recently that says one of the problems is we're wired to think of the negative things because the negative things are the ones that might hurt us, We think about the lions and the tigers and the bears all the time, whether they're near or not, because they're the ones we have to look out for. That's the way we're wired. We're wired for bad news. But if the brain loves good news, if the brain hears good news and remembers good news, the brain does better. And people who focus on good things end up sharing more joy. So I hope you feel that way. I hope you saw, I was there, or I know him, or isn't that wonderful? I'm so glad that we can take some credit for what we've done in the name of the Lord. I hope you feel that way, especially since I'm asking for a raise at the annual meeting. Got the tie on. But more so because it's the good news that propels us into next year. The challenges, the storms, God forbid. The money crunches that come and go. The staff that come and go. The loved ones that come and go. Who knows what will happen as we continue through 2018. What we can say for sure is that there was a lot of joy in 2017. We brought a lot of joy to each other and to the world. And we just want to ride that wave. Ride that wave right into the next year and the years to come. So I hope the news is for you as good as it is for me. I think for Paul, it would be great news to hear from Advent. Amen.